The People's Platform.
Good evening and welcome to the show. Our topic of discussion tonight is prioritizing agricultural prowess in order to bolster food security and Sri Lanka's economy. I'm so pleased to welcome to the studio for the first time Professor Aruna Shanthaarachchi, Professor in Economics, University of Sabaragamuwa. Good evening and welcome, Professor.
Yeah, good evening and happy to be with you.
Professor, Sri Lanka is an agriculture-based economy, but constantly we hear of issues in our agriculture system, in our agriculture policies, issues in marketing, lack of technological advancement, climate change, productivity, irrigation and water management. These are only a handful. So why is the agriculture paradigm in Sri Lanka in such a mess?
Yes, okay. Actually, basically what we are thinking about the agriculture sector in Sri Lanka, it is a contribute to the national income and accounting by significant way here, because once we consider the gross domestic products in our country actually is more than 8.25 or around 9% contributed by the agriculture sector.
Okay.
And also once we consider the employment opportunities, there are more than 2 million employments. It is out of the total labor force might be around 25% working in the agriculture sector.
Okay.
So when we consider the rural sector actually, because in the rural area more than 60% employment generating through the agriculture sector, because it's still in the rural area paddy based economy and farmers are still depend on the paddy farming, and their livelihoods and income generating activity, everything depend on the paddy farming. So therefore, the agriculture sector is very important sector, even though the contribution to the national or GDP is now is 8.6, but once we consider the employment and other activities, that sector it is significantly impact on Sri Lankan economy. But anyhow, once we consider the global market, the international market or the global situations, according to the UNDP projections, by year 2050, the global or national or international level population would increase by additional increase by 1.5 billions. It means the end of year 2050, the world population would be around 9.7 billions. But at the moment it is just 8.3 billions in year 2024. Therefore, additional 1.5 billions the populations add to the total world population. So therefore, just we can imagine that the agriculture sector in not only the Sri Lankan context, but also compared to the global level, it is very, very important, because each and every country should focus those additional population, and also the meantime the global populations the transfer from urban to the rural to the urban population, because at the moment the figure is around 55% is urban populations, but year 2030 that figure would be 68% urban populations.
Right.
Therefore, when the population moving from rural to urbans, their consumption patterns, their demanding pattern, especially for a food item, might be changed, because now even in the Sri Lankan context, now the female labor force participation rate is annually increased. Therefore, the processed foods is the demand for the processed food increase, and also the people looking always for animal nutrients items, and also vegetable and fruits, those are the items. Therefore, consumption pattern significantly change, and therefore, the Sri Lanka in Sri Lankan context and the global economy, that is very, very important. The meantime, the middle class income, actually the middle class income population significantly increased, because at the moment is around 3.5 billion middle class income, but by year 2030 the figure would be 5.2 billions.
If I may just interject, Professor, we keep hearing of issues in our agriculture system and policies. Why is that?
Actually, because successive government, they have taken different policies and they try to implement those policies, but unfortunately those policies were not continually, that means process actually, because sometimes the change in the government policies might be changed, but consistently the common or the constant policies or the application of the constant policy is still questionable here. So, that is the major issue. For example, now just think about the irrigation and water management practices in the country here now. So, in Sri Lankan context, the farmers are getting water, and water is a free commodity, it's a public commodity, free of charge. But all other Asian nations, or this that is called Malaysia or the Thailand, Taiwan, and also the Vietnam, the farmers are paying for the water.
Okay.
But in Sri Lankan, farmers getting water freely. They thought always that water should be supplied by the government. It is free nature of water, and also it is considered as a common pool or the public goods. With the public goods, actually is the identical owner is a common property. Therefore, no one tried to protect the water here.
Okay.
So therefore, the farmers are just taking much water. Sometimes that would be impact on the interdisparity and intra-disparity among the tanks here. It means within the tanks, water disparity would finally impact on the income disparity, and also between the tanks, tank to tanks also, the water availability is not similar. It means much differences. Therefore, finally, all those impact would generate in the income disparity and the poverty here.
Okay.
So therefore, several times the World Bank and also the International Irrigation Management and Water Division, they try to introduce the water pricing practices, water pricing policy actually.
Okay.
And also they try to manage the water through the farm organization. It means water management and management process they hand over to the farm organization, and they tried like one of the simple example for the managing or that means the water rights to the farmer. But unfortunately, those are not happen. It means just after 1 or 2 years, the process is completely failed. Therefore, even at the moment is water exploitation and overusage and the mismanagement. Those are the common practices in the dry zones. Therefore, not strong or consistency policy here. So, the similar thing for marketing and all the other sites too.
A lack of consultation with those having the adequate knowledge is another criticism that is leveled when it comes to making policy regarding agriculture, where it's a top-down approach. People make policies in air-conditioned halls, and then the farmers have absolutely no say in what happens to them.
Yes, it is actually there are many examples for that approach, and this process finally would impact on the farmers' farming activities here. Because simple example now, I will just share with you. Then think about the paddy farming here now. In Sri Lankan paddy farmers now, just to cultivate 1 hectare of land, the farmers needs the cost of production farmer needs around 0.5 millions. It means the total expenditure, total expenditure is just 0.3 or the 300,000 total cost to cultivate 1 hectare of land.
Right.
The total cost, it means that is for machinery, fertilizer, chemicals, manpower, for everything, for the seed paddy. The total expenditure is around 300,000. And finally, they will receive maximum 5 metric tons, it means 5,000 kilograms per hectare per season. So, the market price, just we consider their selling price is around now is 100,000 or 110 rupees something per kilogram, and finally they would receive 500,000 as a gross income. So, therefore, then out of this 300,000 is the total cost, and balance 200,000 might be the total profit if the farmer taking the expected high yield actually here. Otherwise, the income may be further below.
Okay.
And then that 200,000 income is actually for a 6-month period, because the farmer cultivating the 2 seasons per year, Therefore, they should have to maintain that 200 for 6 months. It means on average the income is 50,000 per month for a family. But in Sri Lankan context, the poverty line is means to the minimum expenditure or minimum expenditure per person per month is 16,000 rupees. Therefore, the monthly on average the 5-person family need 80,000 rupees to gross income for maintain their basic needs. Other than they have become a poverty line. Okay. Therefore, just based on that figure, in the dry zone or the whatever in Sri Lankan farmers are actually below the poverty level. Below the poverty level, and therefore that the main reason, because the policymakers, they have taken the decision regarding the paddy marketing price, selling price and all the things, but the reality actually the farmer side is still poor and they are below the poverty line, because the selling price is not permit to earn some significant profit margin here.
So, Professor Shanthaarachchi, on the one hand, you're talking about agrarian poverty.
Yeah.
Then on the other, we're saying that Sri Lanka is an agriculture-based economy.
Yeah.
We're also saying that the farmer is king.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, we have successive governments who control and puppeteer pricing. At the end of the day, it's the farmer who is completely aggrieved. So how does this all add up?
Yeah, that is the issue. So the one side is a big issue actually, because the international the poverty line is the $2 per day, is a $2 per day. Therefore, in Sri Lankan context, 90,000, just 90,000 rupees, around it means 1 lakh, that should be the income level of the poverty line. So then the farmers in Sri Lanka actually is one side, they are getting some subsidies from the government. Some subsidies mean for previously they are getting the fertilizer subsidy, and also even at the moment they are getting some subsidy from the fertilizer, it means for a urea. Right. So then they are cultivating, and with the other side fully subsidy for the water, and the other side the government finally proposed some ceiling price to the production, and ceiling price does not match with the expenditure here. So therefore, look at the difference, the government take the two action, but not one comparable to other one, is not matching here. Because during the cultivation period they are given subsidies to the farmers, and sometimes farmers use subsidy, and it is huge cost to the government actually, huge cost to the government, and all those expenditure is finally impact on the fiscal burdens and the budget and the government budget. And finally they have proposed some the price, it means price target or the ceiling price for the production, but unfortunately, the government cannot purchase the bulk amount from the farmer because they don't have enough money. It means government not sufficiently allocate the money to purchase the paddy from the, it means that means the farmers here.
Right.
On average, they are only taken 10% out of the total market. Other total output goes to the private millers here now. So therefore, just purchasing the 10% actually they cannot manage the ceiling price. Unfortunately, sometimes by imposing a ceiling price, the real price might be below the ceiling price, because some private seller always demanding for the rice for some low price here. So therefore, this kind of the actions and some action and reaction always government take, and those are not matching here now. Yeah. Therefore, if they propose some suitable policies and sometimes the matching policies, I think that will not happen here. Therefore, my point is now, so those are short-term policies actually, given subsidies or the ceiling prices, everything, those are short-term policy actions. The farm and also all those policies purely depend on political agenda and that is political objective. All the things behind there are some political objectives here. So that's the reason for, so sometimes they just during the period of elections and something, they always try to given some this kind of subsidies, but after that they cancel the subsidies likewise here. Therefore, those are not directly economic based policies, and those are political based policies here.
Sure.
So therefore, my argument here now, the government can propose some policies, but those policies should be consistently maintained by the governments and the other ruling party.
All right. We are in conversation with Professor Aruna Shanthaarachchi. We're going for a commercial break. We'll be right back.
The People's Platform.
Welcome back to the People's Platform. We're in conversation with Professor Aruna Shanthaarachchi, Professor in Economics at the University of Sabaragamuwa. We're discussing how to prioritize agricultural prowess in order to bolster Sri Lanka's economy and also Sri Lanka's food security. Professor, growing food insecurity vis-a-vis climate change.
Yeah.
These are two massive issues that Sri Lanka specifically is facing. What's the way forward? How do we create more knowledge about these areas? What do we do? Who are the main stakeholders who are tasked with resolving this?
Yeah, really, because climate change would highly impact on the productivity the near future, because according to the International Irrigation Water Management Institute, what they have focused that in the dry zone, by year 2050, the dry zone farmer needs additional 20 to 26% additional water for their farming practices here because of the climate change. Here the climate change means, let me simply define here now, because the right amount of rainfall the farmer will not receive at the right time is a one major reason. The right amount of rainfalls they will not receive the right time. And also secondly is what the high temperature and also the meantime floodings and also the soil degradations. Those are the major issues with the climate change. So then with the climate change, it is obvious that during the by the year 2050, the dry zone farmers will face some trouble with the limited water, because even at the moment dry zone farmers are facing water, because in the dry season the half of the lands actually they will not cultivate because of the lack of water. So what is a major issue? So then that will be the major issue. So based on that, actually the Sri Lankan policymakers, they should have to focus the climate change and the additional water requirement for the farmer, then way how that additional water requirement supply, or if they cannot supply, what kind of changes they should do. It means here the cropping pattern changes, new crops should be introduced, and maybe sometime the less water incentive crops should that means introduce, and some additional seed varieties, because the developed country, and especially for some other Asian like the Vietnam, they now planning actually for to the face to the climate change pattern here. They are now always investigating and this testing the new seed varieties, and also they are now trying to the promoting some set of the short term varieties, and they try to change their cropping pattern, and therefore the Sri Lankan farmers also the motivated to that fact, and also and given some knowledge and some awareness programs, they should have arranged some sort of awareness program, and also give some the additional knowledge and water management and water practices. Those are the most important, because sometimes to produce 1 kilogram of rice in Sri Lankan context, the farmer use 1,500 liters of water. 1,500 liters of water in Sri Lankan farm on average used to cultivate 1 kilogram of rice.
Wow.
So, but in the other countries, it means 700 or something, almost half. Sure. So therefore, water usage, and that's the big issue. So therefore, then actually based on those points, the decision makers, the planners and all the policy makers, they should focus actually the managing water and reduce the exploitation of water and given some training and practices for the water management for the farmer. Those are the major area to face the climate change process.
My final question to you, Professor, what kind of policy reforms do you propose to increase agricultural growth in the country? I'd like you to focus on the mafias in the supply chain, the fertilizer crisis that we're going through, in the sense that there is no regulation of how fertilizer is used. As a result, there's so much of health concerns that we're also dealing with.
Really, because now the Sri Lankan farmers are always very familiar with the fertilizer, especially for the urea. Because even in the last week we had some research and we discussed with some farmers, then they use to 1 hectare, to cultivate 1 hectare, they need 250 urea kilograms, right? But governments technically, or the agronomists, they propose the less than that amount, but farmers are always use such a amount of fertilizer, and finally that is actually is a dry zone farmers, they those fertilizers and finally link with the groundwater, the damage to the water, and finally the kind of health issues, and then the other socio-economic issues would arise because of the using of more fertilizer. Meantime, as you mentioned, that the mafia or the supply chain or the marketing process is the big issue in Sri Lankan context, because farmer produce good and sometimes the quality product, and unfortunately the profit is taken by some middlemen here, not properly the linked. It means the farm gate to the final market, not proper links, and some middlemen always join with the market, and they are the person capture the higher profit margin from business here. So that is actually big issue, even because now even the Dambula market, right, we have some experience. The price of some vegetables and the fruits determined by some politicians early in the morning. They are the people, just they decide today the price of beans or the carrot. They are the person that is the mafia actually, the real example. This is the mafia. So therefore, just you can imagine that in Sri Lankan context that, and also there are many damages, the processing damage, and because more than 30-35% vegetables is finally lost to the farmer because of the transport process here and the damaging. It is a big losses actually.
Storage is an issue.
Storage issues,
distribution,
storage, and many issues. Therefore, everything is finally would impact the farmer as well as the customer, because if there are some proper transportation, storage, and the quality process, and finally the customer also paying the less amount of money, it means the price should be low actually. With
so
the
in terms of policy, what must be done?
That's the reason, because now the government should have to take some marketing policies, revisit the marketing policies, existing market policies, and they should have to think about the marketing activities, because the previously market is always just for the regional market or the rural market. Now gradually moving that regional and the rural market to the supermarket level. That is the behavior of the developed country also, because as middle class income, the category increase, they always looking for the supermarket, and in the supermarket the customers are always looking the quality and safety of the product rather than quantity here. So that is the approach, because previously just with the rural market, people are just looking for quantity and just price, but now is looking at quality and safety rather than the quantity. So those are the point actually now the policymakers should have to think, and they give some the supports and policy action for improving that sector here.
All right, fantastic, Professor Aruna Shanthaarachchi. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much for
Thank you for watching us. We'll see you again tomorrow. Good night.